The stars looked cold that night. On the edge of the galaxy, in a place no one important ever visited, the world of Elentra was dying. The people of Elentra were not warriors. They were builders, thinkers, growers of food, dreamers of art. Their great cities stood on shining towers of crystal. Rivers glowed softly in the moonlight, and their children played without fear under skies filled with two suns. For centuries, they had lived in peace. But peace does not last forever. The invaders came with fire. No one knew their true name. Some called them the Drovok, others whispered only the Devourers. They came without warning, their fleets like black teeth tearing through space. They did not ask for surrender. They did not want prisoners. They wanted only to burn and consume. When the first Elentran defense fleet rose to meet them, it was destroyed in hours. Their ships were sleek and beautiful, but built for science, not war. Their weapons were weak compared to the burning lances of the invaders. Their cries for mercy were met with silence and flame. Cities fell. Towers cracked and crumbled. Entire valleys turned red with firestorms. Millions fled into the forests and caves, hiding like frightened animals. And in the capital, the leaders of Elentra stood in their great hall, their robes torn and their eyes hollow with fear. "Nothing can stop them," whispered Counselor Cyril. "They will break our last shield in 2 days. After that, we are gone." "Then we must try something," another answered. His voice trembled, but his eyes still burned with desperate courage. The council turned to him. His name was Arilen, a scholar once known for studying the signals of distant stars. He was not a warrior, but his idea was the only hope left. "Long ago," Arilen said, "we listened. We mapped the voices of the galaxy. We heard whispers, faint signals, scattered across the void. Civilizations unknown to us. And among them, one voice stood strong. A people who spoke of unity, of standing together. They called themselves humanity." The name fell heavy in the silent chamber. Few had ever believed the stories. A species young, wild, reckless. Their signals were filled with strange songs, bold speeches, and endless stories of struggle and victory. Humanity. Cyril scoffed bitterly. "They are myths. Ghosts of radio waves." "Perhaps," Arilen said softly. "But what choice do we have? If even one ship of theirs still sails the stars, if even one ear still listens, perhaps they will hear us." The council fell silent. Then slowly, one by one, they nodded. It was not hope. It was desperation. The message. Deep in the caverns below the capital, where the last transmitter still burned with power, the engineers worked without rest. Their hands shook, but they pushed forward. "Signal strength is weak," one muttered. "Then amplify," Arilen urged. "The range may not reach beyond the cluster." "Then let us shout as loud as we can." At last, the machine trembled to life. Lights flickered across its surface, and the air filled with the low hum of power. Arilen stood before the transmitter. He looked into the black lens, knowing it faced only empty space, but he spoke as if an entire universe were listening. "This is Elentra. To any who can hear, we beg you, help us. We are under attack. Our defenses are broken. Our people are dying. If mercy exists beyond the stars, if courage still breathes in any heart, please, come. We cannot last alone." The words were sent into the dark. A desperate prayer cast upon the ocean of space. The engineers fell silent. Arilen's shoulders sagged. In truth, he did not believe anyone would hear. The galaxy was vast, and they were only a whisper lost in endless noise. Still, he pressed the button. The signal repeated, again and again, like a heartbeat. The falling days. 3 days passed. In that time, the world burned further. The last sky fortress fell, raining debris across the plains. The forests, once glowing with soft blue leaves, turned black with fire. Refugees poured into the mountains, carrying children and little else. Above, the enemy circled like vultures, striking at every spark of life. Their ships blotted out the stars. Arilen sat by the transmitter, hollow-eyed, as the message repeated into the void. No answer came. Counselor Cyril came to him once more. His voice was quiet. You see, scholar? No one listens. We are alone. Arilen could not argue. His voice broke as he whispered, Perhaps you are right. But still, his hand never left the button. The signal never stopped. The stars stir. Far away, beyond the reach of Elentra's broken eyes, something stirred. A listening post sat in the black, orbiting a lonely star. It was old, its crew small, its work forgotten by most. They listened not for war, but for knowledge. Mapping signals, cataloging whispers. On that day, their sensors caught something strange. A faint, broken cry. The crew replayed it. Static hissed. Then words emerged. We beg you, help us. We are under attack. Our defenses are broken. Our people are dying. The officer in charge froze. Origin. Outer rim, uncharted. Signal repeating. Translate. Already done. The language was alien, but the meaning clear, a cry for help. The officer hesitated only a moment. Then he sent it up the chain. Within hours, it reached a fleet. Within days, it reached command. Within weeks, the message had traveled across human space. Humanity had heard. The last night on Elentra. On Elentra, no one knew. The final shield cracked. The last fortress fell. The skies turned red with fire, and the people huddled in the caves whispered prayers to stars that gave no answer. Arilen remained by the transmitter. His body weak, his eyes red, but his hand still on the button. He whispered the words now, though the machine spoke them for him. Please, if anyone can hear us, help us. Outside, the night shook with thunder. The enemy descended in full force. The caves would not last. Cyril stood beside him. For once, his anger was gone. Only sorrow remained. At least we tried, he said. Yes, Arilen whispered. We tried. And in the dark sky above, unnoticed, new signals began to arrive. Not from the enemy. Not from Elentra. From beyond. But the Elentrans did not yet know. They thought the end had come. And then, the stars changed. The night stretched long across Elentra. The people waited for death. The invaders had grown arrogant. They circled slowly now, like wolves around a wounded prey. They had broken the last shields, crushed the last defenses, and now they simply toyed with the survivors. Cities burned not because they needed to be destroyed, but because the enemy enjoyed the fire. The Elentrans lived in caves, in the broken ruins of their once great towers, or deep inside the mountains. They whispered to their children to stay quiet, for sound carried far, and enemy scouts hunted with merciless patience. Arilen, the scholar who had sent the desperate call, still sat by the ancient transmitter. His body was thin, his eyes hollow, but his hand never left the controls. The signal repeated again and again, drifting endlessly into the void. Do you think anyone has heard us? A young engineer asked him one night. Arilen's lips trembled before he forced a whisper. I do not know. But if even one voice listened, maybe. The truth, however, was cruel. The stars gave no answer. The void was silent. A dying people. Days passed. The Council of Elentra was no more. Some had been killed when the capital fell. Others had fled into the wild. Only a few leaders remained, moving among the caves, trying to keep their people alive with small words of comfort. But comfort was weak when hunger gnawed at their stomachs, when smoke filled their lungs, when every night the enemy's warships blotted out the stars. Children cried themselves to sleep. Parents held them close, whispering stories of the old days, when their world shone bright, when their rivers glowed blue, when the sky was safe. But those days were gone. Still, Arilen clung to his duty. Every night, he looked to the dark sky. Every night, he listened to the endless static of the transmitter. And every night, hope grew smaller. The enemy's mockery. On the 5th day after the fall of the capital, the invaders sent a message. It appeared suddenly, a burning symbol carved into the sky. Their ships projected it across the clouds, a black hand closing around a world. It was not language. It was not words. It was mockery. The people of Elentra wept. Some fell into despair, whispering that no one would come, that they were forgotten. Cyril, once a proud counselor, stood in the cave and spoke bitterly. You see, we begged. We shouted into the void. And nothing came. No saviors, no allies. Only silence. Humanity, if they ever existed, did not hear us. We are alone. Arilen did not answer. He simply looked at the stars. A flicker in the dark. Far across the void, the message had traveled. Humanity had heard. The first to detect the cry for help were small listening posts, scattered across the rim of human space. They sent the signal inward, to colonies and command stations. From there, it spread like fire. And soon, it reached the fleets. Admirals read the words in silence. The plea was simple. It was desperate. And it was honest. Please, if anyone can hear us, help us. Our defenses are broken. Our people are dying. Human commanders did not hesitate. They had seen this before, other worlds crushed by the same kind of predators. But this time, the message had reached them before the fire was complete. For humanity, it was not a question of if they would answer. It was only a question of how fast. The silence breaks. On Elentra, the silence dragged on. Arilen sat by the transmitter, coughing from smoke, his body weak. The engineers had all gone. Some to find food, others to care for their families. He was alone now, still pressing the button, still sending the call into the void. His voice was thin, but he whispered the words again. Please, help us. Then, suddenly, something changed. The static shifted. A faint tremor ran through the machine. The lights flickered, not in error, but in response. Arilen froze. His heart pounded. He leaned closer, listening. At first, it was only noise. Then, a rhythm. Then, faintly, a voice. Not Elentran. Not the enemy. Something different. Something strong. He cried out, his voice breaking. They answered. Someone answered. The others rushed into the cavern. They listened as the signal repeated, broken but clear. Hold on. Hold on. This is humanity. We hear you. The words were strange, the accent sharp, but the meaning was unmistakable. For the first time in weeks, the caves of Elentra filled with the sound of hope. The waiting. Hope, however, was a cruel companion. The people wept with joy, but then came the silence again. No more signals. No ships. No salvation falling from the sky. Children asked their parents, where are they? When will they come? And the parents had no answer. Some whispered that it had been a trick. That the enemy had forged the voice to break their spirit. That humanity was only another myth. But Arilen believed. He held the broken signal close, replaying it again and again, listening to the rough, steady voice. Hold on. This is humanity. We hear you. He did not know when they would come. He did not know if they were strong enough. But he believed they were real. And that belief was enough to keep him alive. The silent sky. Above, the enemy prepared the final blow. Their fleets gathered, surrounding the planet, their black hulls glowing with fire. The invaders were not patient. They were ready to finish Elentra once and for all. But as their ships moved into position, something changed in the heavens. Sensors flared. Strange readings appeared. Unknown codes whispered through the void. The invaders paused. Their commanders barked orders. They had seen many foes before, but never signals like these. The codes were sharp, encrypted, disciplined. And then, the first ships appeared. The arrival. To the Ilentrans below, it began as whispers. Survivors hiding in the caves pointed at the night sky. Small flashes, like distant stars, moving in formation. At first, they thought it was only the enemy shifting again. But the flashes multiplied. Dozens. Hundreds. Moving together, not in chaos, but in perfect order. The people trembled. "Who are they?" whispered a child. Then, the signal came again, clear this time, carried across every surviving receiver, every broken screen, every battered radio. "This is humanity. Hold on. You are not alone." The caves erupted with cries of hope. Even Cyril, the bitter counselor, fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. The silence of the void was broken. Humanity had come. The enemy hesitates. The invaders had crushed dozens of worlds before. They had faced desperate calls for help, and never once had anyone come. They were predators, and predators knew the sound of weakness. But this was different. The new fleet moved with terrifying precision. Every ship kept perfect distance. Every signal was measured and cold. The invaders snarled, but in the silence of their command chambers, for the first time, they felt something alien to them. Uncertainty. The long night ends. On Elentra, the people crawled from their caves. They stood on the broken hills, on the blackened ruins of their cities, and they looked to the sky. There, above the smoke and fire, they saw them, ships black as night, sharp as blades, burning with power. Not one, not 10, hundreds. And they came not in chaos, but in full battle formation. The silence was over. Humanity had arrived. The sky of Elentra was no longer silent. For weeks, the people had seen only the black warships of the invaders blotting out the stars. Now, new shapes cut across the heavens. They came in precise lines, their engines glowing like silver fire. The Elentrans stared upward in awe. "Are they real?" whispered a child, clutching his mother's hand. "They came," Arilen breathed, tears running down his face. Humanity came. The enemy watches. The invaders were not afraid of small resistance. They had broken fleets larger than Elentra's entire population. They had crushed cities, burned oceans, and shattered moons. But this fleet was different. Their sensors read hundreds of ships, more than they had expected, larger than they had imagined. The newcomers did not scatter or rush forward recklessly. They advanced as one, every vessel moving in rhythm, every signal sharp, encrypted, controlled. The invaders hissed in their guttural language. They had seen prey before. This did not feel like prey. Still, their arrogance was strong. "They are few," their warlord snarled. "We are many. Break them, as we broke the others." The human fleet. From the largest vessel at the heart of the formation, a human commander stood before a wide viewing screen. Her name was Admiral Reyes, and her face was carved with scars from battles long past. She spoke calmly to her officers. "Enemy forces are spread across the orbit. They have ground installations active. Civilian survivors detected in the caves and mountains. Evacuation impossible until the threat is neutralized." One officer looked up. "Admiral, their numbers are heavy." Reyes's eyes narrowed. "Numbers don't win wars. Discipline does. Begin strike formation. And remind every crewman, this is not conquest. This is rescue." A quiet murmur of acknowledgement ran across the bridge. The order spread like fire. And then, the fleet moved. The opening shot. The invaders laughed when the humans did not fire immediately. They expected fear, delay, hesitation. But what came next silenced their laughter forever. The human fleet adjusted in perfect synchrony. Long, black hulls shifted until the formation became a great spear of light. Reyes gave a single word. "Fire." In that instant, the void itself seemed to shatter. From dozens of ships, beams of white light tore across the darkness. Missiles streaked forward, wrapped in fire. The first wave hit the enemy before they even finished charging their weapons. The result was devastating. Entire cruisers cracked open, their hulls splitting like glass. Fire erupted across the orbit as invader ships twisted and broke. The hunters of worlds, the devourers, screamed in confusion. This was no prey. This was war. The sky burns. On the surface of Elentra, the survivors gasped as the night sky lit up. Fire streaked across the heavens, but this time, it was not their cities burning, it was the enemy. A young child pointed upward. They're falling. Indeed, massive fragments of black ships rained down, crashing into the forests and oceans. The ground trembled as explosions shook the world. The Elentrans did not run in fear. They ran out of the caves to watch. For the first time in weeks, they saw hope burn brighter than despair. The enemy strikes back. The invaders were not weak, however. They were predators of the stars, and they had not ruled the void by cowardice. Enraged, their fleets turned as one. Hundreds of ships launched forward, firing with savage fury. Red beams slashed across space. Missiles streaked toward the human formation. The void became a storm of fire. But the humans did not break. Shields at 70%, an officer reported calmly. Rotate the front line. Bring up reserves, Reyes ordered. And the formation shifted. The front ships pulled back, damaged but alive, while fresh ships replaced them in the line. The spear did not falter. It only grew sharper. The enemy slammed against them like waves against a cliff, and broke. The human way of war. The invaders fought with chaos, each captain charging wildly, seeking glory. Humanity fought with unity. Every ship was a piece of a single will. Every weapon fired not at random, but as part of a greater design. One by one, enemy ships fell. A destroyer cracked apart under concentrated fire. A battleship exploded as 3 human cruisers struck in perfect sequence. Even the massive carriers of the invaders, once feared across systems, were torn open like rotten fruit. The Elentrans watched from below, their hearts racing. They had never seen such war. Their people had always built with beauty, with peace. They had thought war was only destruction. But here, war was salvation. The broadcast. In the midst of the battle, a signal cut across the planet. Every broken screen flickered to life, every battered radio crackled. A human voice spoke, steady and calm. To the people of Elentra, you are not forgotten. You are not alone. Hold on. We will not leave you. The words spread across the caves, the ruins, the mountains. The survivors cried out, their voices rising like a wave. Even Cyril, who once mocked Arilan's hope, fell silent, his lips trembling. They came, by the stars, they truly came. The turning point. The invaders realized too late that they were no longer the hunters. They were the hunted. For every human ship that took damage, 3 of theirs fell. For every strike they launched, the humans answered with coordinated fire. The predators felt fear for the first time. And fear spread like poison. Some broke formation. Others fled. Admiral Reyes saw it all from her command chair. She raised her hand, calm as the void. Do not pursue. Hold formation. Let them see. Let them know what comes when you prey upon the helpless. Her officers obeyed. The human fleet did not chase. They did not scatter. They simply stood, an unbroken wall between the enemy and the planet below. The message was clear. Humanity had arrived. The enemy retreats. At last, the enemy broke. Their ships scattered, vanishing into the dark. A few tried to regroup, but they were hunted down and destroyed with ruthless precision. When the last fire faded, silence fell across the void. The Elentrans stood on their ruined hills, staring upward at the black fleet that now guarded their skies. For the first time in weeks, the world was quiet. Not the silence of despair. The silence of victory. Arilan's tears. In the cavern where the transmitter still hummed, Arilan fell to his knees. Tears ran down his cheeks. They heard us, he whispered. Against the endless stars, they heard us. Cyril stood beside him, his voice breaking. You were right. Humanity is real. Arilen looked up at the night sky, where the human fleet glowed like a constellation of steel. They are more than real, he whispered. They are saviors. The first strike ends. The battle was over, but the war was not finished. The enemy would return. They always did. But Elentra was no longer alone. Above the burning world, the human fleet stood ready. Not as conquerors. Not as invaders. But as protectors. The first strike had ended, and with it, the age of silence. Now, the galaxy would learn a truth it would never forget. When humanity arrives, they arrive in full battle formation. The fires of battle still burned across Elentra's skies, but the thunder of war was gone. The enemy ships had fled into the darkness, their wreckage falling like black rain across the oceans and mountains. The survivors stood in silence. For the first time in weeks, they looked at the heavens without fear. Above them, the human fleet remained, vast, steady, unbroken. The quiet after the storm. In the caves and ruins, the Ilentrans whispered, "Are they still there? They will not leave us, will they?" No. They came to protect. They stayed. Even Cyril, once bitter and hopeless, could not deny what his eyes saw. His voice shook as he spoke to Arilen. They are not myths. They are real. They came for us. Arilen's face was wet with tears. He had dreamed of this moment, prayed for it, begged for it. But even he had not imagined the sight before him. Hundreds of human warships holding formation, every one a promise that Elentra was no longer alone. The human broadcast. Suddenly, every surviving device on the planet flickered. Broken screens sparked back to life, old radios crackled, even small communicators hidden in the ruins lit up with signal. Then, a voice. Calm. Strong. Human. This is Admiral Reyes of the human fleet. To the people of Elentra, you are safe. We are here. The voice spread across the planet. Survivors fell to their knees. Some laughed in disbelief, others wept openly. The message continued. We heard your call. We came not as conquerors, but as allies. No world stands alone. We will not abandon you. The words rolled through the ruins like thunder. The invaders had brought only terror. Humanity brought something else. Hope. The faces of the survivors. Deep in the caves, children pressed close to their parents, listening with wide eyes. A girl no older than 6 whispered, "They sound strong." Her father held her tightly. Stronger than anyone we've ever known. On the mountainsides, refugees lifted their hands toward the sky. They fight for us, they whispered. Strangers, yet they fight for us. Even in the broken capital, where the ruins still smoldered, survivors crawled from the rubble to hear the voice. They had expected death. Instead, they heard salvation. The commander's words. On the flagship, Admiral Reyes stood tall before the transmission screen. Her officers waited in silence. She spoke again, her words carried to both friend and foe. To the invaders who still listen, you are predators. You feast on the weak. But know this, where you strike, we will stand. Where you burn, we will rebuild. You are not the only power in this galaxy. Her tone sharpened. You made them beg for help. Humanity answered. Remember this day. Remember what comes when you prey upon the helpless. The message ended, but its echo lingered. The Ilentrans respond. In the cavern, Arilen whispered, his voice breaking. They fight not for themselves, but for us. Cyril bowed his head. I doubted. I mocked. Yet here they stand, and we live because of them. Others began to chant, not with anger, but with gratitude. Humanity. 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 The chant spread from cave to ruin, from ruin to mountain, until the broken world echoed with the name of their saviors. The human way. The humans did not celebrate their victory. On the flagship, there was no cheer, no music, no dancing. The officers remained at their stations, eyes on the sensors, hands steady on their controls. They knew the war was not over. Admiral Reyes gave quiet orders. Keep formation. Rotate damaged ships to the rear. Medical shuttles to the surface. Supplies to the civilians. This is not victory yet. This is only the beginning. Her people obeyed without hesitation. Discipline was their strength. Mercy was their mission. First contact. When the first human shuttle descended from the heavens, the Ilentrans gathered in silence. The sleek black craft touched down among the ruins, its ramp lowering slowly. From within, figures emerged, tall, armored, faces hidden behind helmets. They moved with precision, every step measured. Weapons glowed at their sides, but they were not raised. The survivors trembled. These were not the soft scholars or gentle builders they knew. These were warriors, carved from steel and fire. Then one soldier removed his helmet. His face was scarred, his eyes sharp, but his voice was gentle. "You are safe now," he said. "We came as fast as we could." An old woman fell to her knees, clutching the soldier's hand. "You heard us," she wept. "The stars carried our cries, and you came." The soldier bowed his head. "We always hear. And we always come." The symbol of hope. Within hours, human shuttles spread across Elentra. They brought food, water, medical care. They lifted wounded into orbiting ships. They restored power to broken shelters. But more than supplies, they brought something greater. Proof. Proof that Elentra was not forgotten. Proof that, even in the darkest corner of the galaxy, someone listened. Everywhere the humans went, the people followed them. Not with fear, but with reverence. Children clung to their armored legs. Adults bowed in gratitude. To Elentra, humanity was not just an ally. They were a miracle. The enemy's shadow. Far away, in the darkness beyond the stars, the enemy fleets regrouped. Their warlord raged. "These humans dare defy us," he snarled. "They protect the weak. They fight with unity. They are a threat." His generals bowed. "What shall we do?" The warlord's eyes glowed red. "We will gather more. We will return with fire greater than theirs. And then, we will see if these humans still stand." Admiral Reyes's reflection. On the flagship, Reyes stood at the window, watching Elentra's battered world turn slowly below. One of her captains approached. "Admiral, why do we fight for them? They are strangers to us." Reyes's eyes never left the planet. "Because no one else would. Because we know what it is to be prey, to be small, to be alone. Humanity swore long ago, we will not allow others to suffer what we once suffered." Her voice softened, but her resolve was iron. "This is our message. This is who we are." The promise. That night, Elentra's skies glowed not with fire, but with the steady light of human ships holding orbit. In the caves, the survivors slept without fear for the first time in weeks. In the ruins, children dreamed of tomorrow. In the mountains, voices whispered the same truth again and again. They came. Humanity came. Arilen sat by the old transmitter one last time. He placed his hand on it gently. Once, it had been a desperate plea. Now, it was no longer needed. He looked up at the stars, where the human fleet shone bright. "They heard us," he whispered. "And they answered." The message echoes. Across the galaxy, news spread. Traders whispered of a fleet that rose in perfect formation. Outposts repeated the tale of humans who came for strangers. Other worlds listened with new ears. The predators heard, too. And for the first time, they wondered if their reign would last. For the galaxy had learned something dangerous. When the helpless cried out, humanity listened. And when humanity came, they came in full battle formation. The world of Elentra was broken, but it was alive. The fires of battle still smoldered in forests and ruins. The mountains still echoed with the rumble of falling wreckage. The oceans still glowed with burning fragments of ships that had once belonged to predators. But above it all, in the sky where fear once lived, the human fleet stood like a wall of steel and fire. The silence of victory. The survivors could not sleep. For too many nights, sleep had been filled with terror, dreams of fire, of black ships, of endless screams. Now, the silence felt strange. Children woke in the caves and looked to their parents. "Is it over?" they whispered. Their parents answered with trembling voices, "Yes, for now. They are gone." And always, the survivors looked upward. They saw the formation of human warships glowing in the heavens, each one a promise that the darkness would not return unchecked. The arrival of aid. At dawn, human shuttles descended once more. They came not as conquerors, but as healers. Teams of soldiers and medics spread across the surface. They carried food, water, medicine, shelter. They lifted wounded into orbiting hospitals. They helped clear rubble, raised temporary shelters, and restored broken power lines. Everywhere they went, the Ilentrans followed. They touched the humans' armor with reverence. They cried openly in gratitude. One young boy, no more than 10, clung to a soldier's hand and whispered, "Don't leave us." The soldier knelt, his face hidden by his helmet, and replied softly, "We won't." The gathering. In the ruined capital, among shattered towers and burned streets, the survivors gathered in what remained of the great square. There, a human platform was raised. Admiral Reyes herself descended from her flagship, flanked by officers. Her presence was calm, steady, unshaken by war. The Ilentrans gasped. She was not a myth. She was real, flesh and blood. Arilen, the scholar who had first sent the desperate call, stood at the front of the crowd. His voice broke as he spoke to her. "You heard us. You crossed the stars for us." Reyes's gaze swept across the broken faces, the wounded, the hungry, the children who had seen too much. Her voice was steady as she answered. "You asked for help. We came. That is all." The warning. But then her tone hardened. She turned her eyes upward, as if speaking not only to Elentra, but to the galaxy itself. "To those who prey on the weak, hear this. Humanity will not stand aside. Where you burn, we will fight. Where you enslave, we will rise. Where you silence, we will answer." Her voice carried across every device, every transmitter, even the broken machines. The entire planet heard her words. "We do not come as rulers. We do not come as conquerors. We come as defenders. And let all who would destroy the innocent remember, humanity does not forget. Humanity does not forgive. Humanity arrives in full battle formation." The square trembled with the force of her words. The survivors wept. Some cheered. Others bowed. The galaxy itself, though far beyond Elentra's skies, would remember this warning. The tears of the scholar. Arilen fell to his knees, overcome. His hands trembled as he looked up at the admiral. "I thought no one would hear us," he whispered. "I thought the stars were empty." Reyes placed a hand on his shoulder. Her eyes softened, just for a moment. "The stars are never empty," she said. "You are not alone. Not anymore." For Arilen, those words were heavier than any weapon, brighter than any fire. He would carry them until his last breath. The survivor's oath. That night, across the planet, the survivors lit fires, not of destruction, but of hope. They sang in voices rough with grief, but alive with new strength. They swore they would rebuild. In the mountains, in the caves, in the ruins of their cities, they spoke the same vow. "We will remember. We will stand. We will honor those who came for us." Children learned a new name that night, one they would carry into the future. They whispered it like a prayer. Humanity. The enemy's fear. Far away, in the black halls of the invaders, the warlord listened to reports of the battle. His claws tore into the metal of his throne. "Humans," he spat. "They fight as one. They strike with precision. They do not flee. They do not beg. They are not prey." His generals shifted uneasily. They had seen fear spread through their fleets. They had seen warriors break under the human onslaught. They will spread, one muttered. Others will call to them. Others will hope. The warlord's eyes glowed with rage. Then we will burn faster, harder, before hope grows. But even he knew the truth. A shadow of doubt had entered their reign. The predators of the stars were no longer the only hunters. The human departure. Weeks later, when Elentra's wounds were stabilized, the human fleet prepared to move on. Their duty was not only here. There were other worlds, other cries, other voices in the dark. The survivors gathered to watch the ships lift. They wept, not from despair, but from gratitude. Arilen stood among them, his heart heavy but proud. He knew humanity could not stay forever. But he also knew they would never truly leave. Before the flagship rose, Admiral Reyes sent one final message. You are stronger than you believe. You will rebuild. And when the darkness returns, call again. We will answer. The promise of tomorrow. The fleet rose into the sky, their engines burning bright, until they vanished among the stars. The people of Elentra stood in silence. Then slowly, voices rose. Not in grief, but in promise. They came when we begged. They came when all was lost. We will not forget. Children pointed at the stars where the fleet had gone. Someday, they said, we will stand with them. And perhaps they would. The legacy. Across the galaxy, the story spread. Traders carried it, soldiers repeated it, refugees whispered it. It grew with each telling. A broken world begged for help. And humanity came, not with hesitation, not with mercy alone, but with fire, with steel, with unstoppable formation. Predators listened with unease. Prey listened with hope. And all understood. When humanity arrives, they do not arrive in silence. They do not arrive alone. They arrive in full battle formation.